Okay, what's going on, y'all? This is Quantum Nomad here. So since this is a channel that is about the nomadic lifestyle, I kind of just group myself in with van lifers, RV lifers, full timers, stuff like that. Um, since it is cold, I just did want to talk about a few things or something. So like with when it gets to really cold, um, you know, I would say like the cold seasons for nomads or van lifers. Um, one thing I would say is one of the challenges is the climate. Certain times of the year it's really hot. And certain times of the year it's really cold. So I've been researching different things, and there's all kinds of different ways to deal with the cold, cold weather season and the hot weather season. And of course, just like in a house or a home or an apartment, you're going to use more energy when it's, colder, and also when it's hotter, mainly during like, I would say winter and summer. During like spring and fall, your energy consumption, depending on if you're running from like a generator or like using propane. My main sources of energy are going to be my generator. Well, yeah, my generator basically in the battery, but the battery is fed by the generator. The generator keeps the battery charged up. And also something too to also note is a lot of batteries on RVs, unless it's on the inside. My battery is on the outside. I have a travel trailer, but I know like a lot of the um, like the mobile homes, they actually have their batteries usually somewhere near the step area on the inside. So it's a little bit easier to keep those batteries at a certain temperature. But most batteries, the colder the temperature outside, the worse the battery performs and the worse it holds its charge. So during the cold seasons, you're gonna have to run your generator a lot to keep your RV powered up, because when it's cold outside, I would say like around below 35 degrees, below 40 degrees, 35 degrees, the battery loses its voltage very quickly. It doesn't hold a charge. And you have to keep that battery, on the charger basically. Now, when it gets above a certain temperature, the battery warms up. The cells are more easily able to hold a charge, so you don't really have that problem. But I do know that when it's colder outside, the batteries perform very badly. And yeah, so just a side note there, I wanted to mention that. Now I know there's different kinds of batteries depending on what kind you get. You may have one that has a higher cold cranking amps limit. Those, they have a higher limit, but it's generally, if it gets really really cold outside, they're just not going to hold the charge very well, or not very long. So again, you're going to have to keep your generator running as long as it's cold to keep your battery on your travel trailer charged up and operational. I mean, you have to run it, you have to run it periodically, whether it's like once a day for an hour or two, maybe, to just kind of keep it to where, because anytime you're using it, unless you have a solar panel on your mobile home or your travel trailer, you have to keep those batteries topped off, because whenever you're running stuff like your radio and like your refrigerator and whatever else, like those are your main things that your battery would run off of, like a 12-volt fridge, like a radio, TV maybe, um, stuff like that. Your lights, your RV light, like your jack stand, anything like, oh yeah, like your furnace. Your furnace runs off of your battery, and your heater as well. Um, so that's basically like your main heating systems. And like I said, when it's cold, you need to have, you're gonna have to run, you're gonna have to have enough battery voltage to, run your furnace, because your furnace is what basically heats up your RV unless you have a plug-in heater. And also your battery. It also operates your propane for your stove, and also the propane that your water heater is operated off of. Now you can heat your water up in your RV with the electric heater. Most modern RVs come with a electric heater and a propane heater. But typically I use my propane, but you have the option to use your electric heater as well. But with your electric heater, you're going to have to be plugged into a generator, because that electric water heater pulls a lot of power, and it pulls too much power to just basically use the battery to power it. It's going to need the generator. So anything like your AC unit, or like your hot water heater, your electric water heater, like your high pulling appliances, like your microwave, that's going to have to run on something like your generator. You cannot run those appliances off of your battery alone. It's just too much current, or too many wattage rather, to operate those appliances, or too much current. Sorry. So that wasn't what I wanted to talk about specifically. What I wanted to talk about was something that I had encountered. I think this is something that a lot of people that stay in RVs or vans um, during the cold weather may encounter. Things you have to worry about, that I'm aware of, are, your frosted fries. Are your lines, your water hoses, or your water lines freezing? So if you're not going to be in your RV and the temperature is going to be below 32 degrees for a long period of time, you either need to winterize your RV, or empty out the water from it. But it's better to winterize it. I have not winterized mine yet, because honestly, um, I haven't done it, because I never took the time to actually do it. But because I'm always in it. But if your RV is going to be sitting somewhere, um, they recommend that you run antifreeze through your pipes and through your system to basically keep your lines from freezing over. Because if you have water, in your lines, it could freeze. It can, burst your water lines. It can cause water damage. Stuff can expand with the ice. So, yeah. So that's just something that people that I would say that have their RVs sitting, that they're not being used, that could be a problem that they face if they don't winterize their 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 uh their mobile homes and their travel trailers. It's basically the same concept as when you put antifreeze in your car. When it gets to be a certain temperature, um, the if you're if you just have water inside your coolant, if it gets below freezing, then that can cause your block to freeze, and it can cause you to crack your block if you get some ice in there. So that's why the chemical antifreeze is added to your engine or your coolant system to circulate through your engine, because any remaining fluid in there, um, it basically, the chemical keeps it from, completely freezing. So, yeah, so basically, I had an incident, what was it, yesterday, where, I was going for like a day at work, basically, and like a day and a half, basically. And when I got back home, I went to go turn my water pump on. And when I turned my water pump on, it wasn't coming on. So I said, oh, okay, I probably got some air in the lines. And before I left, I had emptied out my water lines, because, I knew that it was going to be below, freezing. The freezing mark is 32 degrees. So I knew that I wasn't going to be there for a while. So I went ahead and emptied out, the water lines. And I know it got down to, I want to say 28 degrees. And I know like most of that day, it was like right there right beneath the freezing mark, and it didn't get too far above freezing. So the temperatures really didn't get that warm. So, I'm aware of that even when you empty out your water lines, there can still be some remaining water in the lines. But I've done it the same way every time when it gets cold. If I'm not going to be there, um, I just empty out the water because when I'm not there, see with my RV, I have what's called a enclosed underbelly, and supposedly, it's supposed to be rated. It's rated as a four seasons RV or camper, meaning that it has the insulation to basically withstand colder temperatures, and it has what they call a heated underbelly or ducted heated underbelly, which means that the heat that the furnace generates allegedly, supposedly, is supposed to protect all of your underlying water pipes and hoses and stuff like that from freezing, while if it gets to be too cold. The way that it's designed is the ducting is supposed to, route the heat from the furnace when it's running to basically keep those lines above freezing so you don't have to worry too much about, any kind of heating or anything like that. So when I'm inside the RV, when I'm there, I normally have the furnace set to a certain, or like the I'll say the thermostat set to a certain temperature. So periodically the furnace will cut on, or the heater will cut on, which is a furnace, that will start to run, and it'll keep the temperature underneath the RV from getting to be too low to where your lines would freeze. So normally when I'm at home, I don't have any issues, but because I wasn't there and it was that cold and it was the temperature was so low for a long period of time, I think that it caused the water in my water line to freeze. So like I was saying, when I got home, I went to cut on the water pump and it wouldn't cut on. So I'm like, oh hell, here we go. Something that happened. So, I tried to cut it on again and it wouldn't cut on. So I said, oh shit. So I was like, man, I hope I didn't, leave something on or accidentally leave the water pump on. And because I had knew that I had emptied out my black tanks. I mean, not my black tank, but my holding tank, which holds the fresh water that supplies the whole RV with water. I had emptied that out, and then I had emptied out the low point drains, which basically is a drain for like your sink and like the water heater and stuff like that. So I emptied out that. But I'm guessing I still had some air in the lines, which allowed for water to still be in the lines and not completely empty out. So like I was saying, like I think what happened was I had some leftover water in my water lines, and so when because like I said, I had completely emptied the water lines out, and when I went back outside to check the drain hoses, they were completely empty. There was no more water coming out. So I closed the valve and I was like, okay, that's it. They're empty. It's done. But again, water can get stuck in air, and water can get stuck in your line sometimes still. So I should have purged it. I should have like turned the water pump on to get the excess water out the line, but I didn't for whatever reason. But now I know. But yeah, so when I got home, like I said, I tried to turn it back on. This is like after it's been freezing overnight for like a whole day and a half. I got home, the water pump would not turn on. Making a long story short, because I'm making this kind of long. Making a long story short, I had ice in my water lines. Luckily, it did not expand, but I did have like frozen water in the water line. So what I had to do was turn the furnace on and get the temperature underneath the RV to above freezing, and then that water basically melted, and I had slowly the water pump, it broke up I guess the ice, in the water lines, and it was pumping water again. But it took a good, probably like a good hour before I was able to get water through my system and get those, I guess, ice chunks or whatever, through. So like, yeah, that's basically what I want to say. If you ever, come home or something like that and it's cold and you're trying to get your water pump to turn on, just be aware that you may have to run your furnace for a while, because you probably have some ice in your lines probably, and it's basically causing a blockage in your lines. So like I said, I had took the panel off, to where I could access the water pump. And the only reason how I knew that it was ice in there was because at first, when I cut it on, I can normally hear it go, make this sound. But when I tried to cut it on this time, it wasn't making no sound at all. So I said, something's not right. So, like I said, something just said, okay, I took the panel off, and then I went to go check the water pump to see if it was, looking weird or anything, if it was hot or overheating. It wasn't hot, it wasn't overheating. So I said, I got a feeling it's some frozen water in these lines. And I actually touched the water line, and it was really, really cold. So that's kind of how I kind of knew that it's a good chance I had ice in the lines and there was a blockage in there. And that's what had happened. Because the water lines for these RVs are very, very skinny. They're not thick water lines at all. And that's what happened basically. And so, like I said, what I had to do was turn the furnace on, get the inside of the RV, warm, and then also get the bottom side where the lines run also, underneath the RV, underneath the the enclosed belly. I had to basically run the furnace to get those lines above, freezing, or at least hotter, to get whatever ice was in there blocking the water lines to break up and melt to clear the the waterway. And that's what I did. And after I did that for like an hour, I was able to get water pressure, and I was good. But that did happen though. It was very scary because I thought, it wasn't scary, but I was just kind of a little bit worried because it was, I needed to use my water system like that day, and I didn't know, how long it would be before I would be able to find a part. And the part in like the parts store for the water pump like that was closed, and I didn't know they had it in stock or if I had to order it. So I was just like, man, this is some bullshit. But I just thought about it. I was like, you know what? I wonder if this is the issue right here, and that's what it was. So yeah, just anytime it's cold outside, just and I will say this too. Like if you're gonna be, camping, using your RV when it's really cold outside, what I mean by cold is anything below 32 degrees for a prolonged period of time, you're gonna want to have that furnace on, at least cutting on periodically, just to make sure that your components, your water lines, when it gets really cold, they're not freezing basically. You're gonna want to run that furnace just to be safe, because like I said, sometimes if it gets too cold and stuff freezes for too long, you can get some water line breakages, you can get some busted water pipes, and you can get leaking all inside your RV and get water damage. And that's one thing that you really don't want in an RV is water damage. Water damage is like your worst nightmare in any kind of travel trailer or RV or motorhome. The main thing that can go wrong structure-wise, or one of the main things that can go wrong structure-wise in an RV or motorhome or travel trailer, is water damage. So any kind of like bursted lines or anything like that, you just want to be really careful this time of year, because stuff can break, stuff can come loose, and ice or busted water lines due to freezing in your water lines, and is a really big issue when you're not running your furnace and keeping your RV water lines warm enough to where you can make sure that that doesn't happen because of the cold temperatures. So that's basically what I wanted to make the video about. Just anyone that is into people like snowbirds and people that basically camp all year round. I think that's awesome. they probably already know that, but just anyone that doesn't know that's thinking about, getting an RV or full timing in an RV, all times a year, hot, cold. Just keep in mind that you're gonna go through a lot of propane during the winter time because you have to make sure that you protect your water lines because with they're susceptible to freezing because for one thing they're smaller, they're skinnier, and it doesn't take much to get those lines to bust if it gets too cold for too long. So because ice expands and if it expands too much it'll break and it'll burst your lines. um so yeah, that's basically what I want to talk about. And also too, one thing that happened last year, when I went to go drain my my water for my kitchen, the galley area, it was completely frozen. Luckily it didn't cause any damage. But even with those too, what I mean by the outside drains, um, the gray water drains, it's like your sink water, your bath water. Whenever you drain those, you know, if it's really cold, those ports can also freeze as well. So what I do is, whenever if I know it's going to be really cold, just to be safe, I'll go ahead and empty those out. And then I will empty out my black water tanks into my portable black water waste receptacle. I'll empty that out, make sure it's empty, so you don't have full tanks when it gets cold that potentially cause any problems. Just to be safe, I emptied out those tanks. Again, those are the tanks that hold your water that comes out of your kitchen sink and like your bath water, your sink water. That's your gray water, and then I will empty out, the black water tank, which is basically like you can't, you gotta put that in an actual bin and dump it at a dump site. I'll go ahead and dump those out at a dump site. That way, when cold weather comes, I don't have all that, water and fluid that could possibly freeze and cause issues. So that's just something else that I do to be safe. Um, um, you might not need to do all that, but I do it just to make sure that I don't have full tanks that could get cold and freeze. So, and like I said, as long as you run a furnace, you're probably fine, unless it's like 30 degrees below zero for like 3 days straight. Then you might have some issues, and you're gonna have to probably run some antifreeze in your system. But typically, like if you're just, if it's cold, you run your furnace. Your furnace should keep your water lines from freezing as long as you run that furnace pretty regularly or have it set to a temperature where it'll come on and then cut off intermittently. Um, just to make sure that you're not risking any damage to your water system, basically. So that's basically it. I just wanted to make some RV content, just some things that I had basically, learned since I've been doing this. This is like my first issue I've had, but I got it figured out. This is the first issue, little issue I've had since I've been full timing. But luckily, it didn't, no issues. There weren't any issues. So yeah, I hope you all found this interesting. I'm gonna try to do more RV content and talk about just certain things I'm learning as I'm full timing, and just certain tips and pointers to anybody that or anything that you might need to know as I learn just how to full time and live in mines efficiently. All seasons throughout the year. I'm going to make more videos about just tips and for anyone that's trying to get into, full time RVing. And as I learn, I will help other people out because I know there's so many things. It can be kind of overwhelming when you first get an RV. Just certain things you just don't know what to do or how to do it. So I would like to be that guy that since I'm kind of been doing it for a while, well, not a long time, but I know a little bit. I've been kind of doing it for a while, and I'm still learning, obviously. Just what I know, I would like to, pass that on to whoever else is trying to get into it and learn about it. So anyway, until next time, I'm going to end this video here. Later.